Hello and welcome to my presentation. My app name is Nouri and my mantra is easy, smart, and human. Nouri is a software based solution to food waste within a household, and my objective was to create a meal planning and inventory management app that helps users track what they have in their pantry, suggest recipes based on available ingredients, and alerts them to upcoming expiration dates to reduce food waste. I tackled this issue by building an app that functions as an interactive combination between a calendar and cookbook. The app would register photos and other details of the produce, uh, would suggest meals based on registered inventory items, and would, of course, provide adequate warning once an item is nearing its expiration date. All right, this project took about 8 to 12 weeks, and I used mainly Miro, Figma, and FigJam, along with some other tools. I will walk you through my research, which mainly comprised of the interview and survey, my analysis of those of said interviews and surveys, my initial designs, wireframing, and sketches, and the prototype, and of course, I improved my app further for visually and auditorily impaired individuals. And in the final, you'll see my test. I began my interviews by creating a poll on Instagram. The poll included 10 open ended questions. It took about 2 to 3 days. The individuals involved in the poll were remote. And here's one of the questions here that says, how do you manage preventing fresh produce from expiring in your home? Another says, which features would you want a product like Nori to have? I then registered some quotations from some of the participants in the survey. One participant said, I do not log what produce we have in a house at any given time, so there's a high risk of forgetting certain things which end up expiring. Another said, giving recommendations when to restock on low stock items. This was a very key insight there that I got from the interview. I then ran another poll as of one. I used some of the participants from the interview as a follow up, and some other submissions from the poll via Instagram. And I received about 10 submissions. And here are 5 pain points that I gathered from uh, my surveys. Most people prefer to cook and eat at home. Most want to save money. Most cook based on what is available at home, which is probably the category in which I fit in. Most most people overbuy and struggle with tracking. I then broke down a lot of my data from my surveys, and you can see it here. 67% of the participants answered, how often do you usually decide what to cook, and based on what is available. And like I said before, this is the category in which I fit in. And you can see the results from some of the survey questions here. I then created an affinity map to try to map out which features would be most important, which would be fun to have, which would be a premium offer maybe for the stakeholders, and which can really create a social aspect to the app. For the social one, you can see an example here, sharing food inventory data with family so they can, especially if you live in the same household, you can kind of track the inventory at home. Some key features here: categories for food like dairy, vegetables. Those all can all be details that you're entering when you're entering items into your inventory. I then created two key personas based on the my targeted audience, which would be 25 to about 45. And you can see here, Rashina Watson, 32, social worker, lives in Maryland, is in a serious relationship. So she likes to cook a lot. So this app would help her, especially the recipe suggestion part of the app. You can see her motivation, her interests, her influences. We've got Mary Angel, 27, consultant, lives in Washington, D.C. She's single. She eats out a lot, but she loves to cook. That's an important detail there to remember. And here are some of her interests and motivations as well. I took Mary Angel's profile and created an empathy map. You can see here exactly what she says and does, thinks and feels, and this really helped me narrow down exactly what I want on the app. I then performed a tree test along after having created a sitemap and kind of breaking down the overall structure of the app. I then started building task flows. The first one being the more straightforward one, sort of like a login prompt. User opens the app, is prompted to log in or sign in. User chooses to log in and then is logged in. User is prompted to log in or sign in, chooses to sign up. Sign ups using Google, Facebook, or email, verified, and there. And then I dove deeper into the task flows and started working on some user flows, some examples of issues or prompts that users might run through when trying to access certain aspects of the app. Sort of the low stock item alert. You can see here suggest a recipe, adding an item, creating an account, checking weekly savings. I then went straight into the user journey, trying to map out how a user would discover the app, uh, what issues they would have to register, or why they would even choose to register, sort of the onboarding process, and why they would choose to share it with their friends and family. I then took all that information and started mapping out exactly which items would go where. You can see in the social, I would have tips and tricks. I would have in the calendar in the cart. I would have an inventory, sort of expiring soon. I just started mapping them out, put them in the right categories so it can be easier for me when I'm processing that information for my sketch and for the actual prototype. And you can see here my preliminary sketches, very rough, kind of just me trying to visualize exactly how I want the app to look. Here's some further ones. I'll have the app name there as well as the logo. And this is the forget your password, where you just enter your email that you logged into, settings, and log out. Then I then started with the wireframing. You can see under the dashboard, I had several other categories here, subcategories. I have the calendar, which I spoke about earlier, and that would have different emojis in it. And you can see everything else here, the profile and how the profile will flow and look. I then started designing, and you can see here I swapped out the sign up for Get Started, which is a friendlier verbiage. Gave it a real clean interface, very straightforward, nice colors, nice welcoming colors. And rather than having subcategories, I kind of just put everything here on one slide. I thought it was easier for navigation purposes. And here is the prototype that I created on Figma and a video that I did via Figma. My Figma video explaining the walkthrough, but with subtitles, which would help those that are sign up auditory or visually impaired. I then ran a final test of impairment here, just to and this really helped me kind of increase the fonts and improve the contrast. And then I went and did the usability testing. Uh, about ran another poll on Instagram, got about 10 individuals to take part. I really wanted to see what I could improve here. A lot of people didn't understand exactly what the calendar was for, so I color coded some of the list view items to the actual days on the calendar, which would be clickable. And I also made the subtitles clickable so it can be easy for users to kind of drop down and see further items. Thank you for reviewing my case study.